sometimes it's an interview. And boy, do we have an interview for
have a
you today.
Interview for you today.
Oh.
I hope you were in the mood to discuss all the spooky content, because let us introduce our guest.
The incomparable Mark Nixon, one of the masterminds behind Shadows at the Door, one of the most fundamentally decent and ridiculously talented human beings working in podcasting.
And an accomplished author.
And an accomplished author.
And a snappy dresser.
And his tattoos are cool.
And a casting wizard, right? I mean, that's a whole nother thing we can talk about. But
Mark has skills.
The man has mad skills.
Mad skills with a Z.
Skills. Seriously.
Let's move on.
Oh, I'm going to let you get away with that. What can't Mark do? That's an excellent question. How about we ask him that question first, all right? We're not going to put our headphones in, and our guest is about to join us on camera looking very noir,
Indeed.
would add. He's got, total mood lighting going on here. Give me a second. Cross your fingers. Let's push the buttons. And hopefully, the guest
here we go.
Is now
Hello.
here. Hello. How are you doing? You were
Well,
on
when you
camera.
invited me on here, you didn't tell me that I was going to be attacked with praise. So
obviously you haven't seen the show in a while.
I was going to say, have you met
Oh,
Alasdair?
boy.
It's kind of his personal brand, attacking people with praise.
just disarm the interview. And hello, everybody. I'm the interview.
All right, so Mark, let's start with the question the chat asked. What can't you do?
Handstands. I'm working on it, though.
Oh, okay.
Cool.
Like-
Cool. Okay.
How do you practice? Do you have one of those weird, seat things where you stick your head in it and try to throw your legs up the wall?
No, I do this thing where I just put my hands on the ground and my legs on the wall. I believe it's called a pike hold.
Mm-hmm.
And then I try and get my legs as high as possible. So you eventually kind of do one, but it's sort of cheating.
There's no such thing as
no.
cheating.
It's
There's no such
how
thing
you
as
get there. Man.
technicalities.
Yeah.
There we go. People also in the chat want to know if you can juggle. Is that a thing you can do?
I have never tried and probably never will.
Okay.
I think it is fairly safe to say that you would be amazing at it, and therefore you don't need to try. And that's
Let's
science.
scoot you over this way just a little
I
bit.
love that. That is the adult version of I could do that. I just don't want to.
Exactly
Right?
so.
Just,
yes.
yes. The cat mentality. I totally could, but it's just it's not for me. It's just not for me. Right. So, as I mentioned, folks, we are probably going to be discussing horror content this evening because Mr. Nixon is quite skilled in the production of audio varieties thereof. So, we've got some headline content warnings for the evening. We may talk about phobias, death and dying, horror themes, mental health and trauma, sexual themes, sociopolitical themes, violence, and this is an interview with Alasdair and Marguerite, and therefore there is very likely to be swearing. There will at least be swearing from us. There may also be swearing from the guest.
Fucking A.
Fucking A. This is
If
also...
I swear, it's your fault.
Gotcha. I
Is
happily
that a
and fully accept that
challenge,
responsibility.
or is that just a footnote? We'll take that on board. The other thing I would say is this is an interview and topics may arise spontaneously. So we will do our best to try to give you a little bit of warning in advance if we're going to swear into deeper, darker territory, but consider yourself so warned.
With that in mind, Mark, would you like to fill in these fine folks about just what Shadows at the Door is and the 2 or 3 really unique things that you folks do?
Not before I thank you both for having me on. It's lovely
That's
to
very
see.
sweet.
We met some years ago, didn't we?
We did.
At PodCon, and it's lovely to see you both again. Thank you for having me.
I have my little Pod UK pin right here. I miss Pod UK very, very much. It was
Pod
wonderful.
UK, that was it. Yeah.
It is
Great.
our absolute pleasure, sir.
Yeah, thank you. So, Shadows at the Door is a anthology audio drama podcast specializing in what is often known as pleasing terrors, horror that scares you, but in a good way. Primarily, that can mean ghost stories, but we also dip our toes into things like folk horror, cosmic horror, and even more terrestrial stuff as well. We're also we can have our cake and eat it too, because at the end of every production, we also have a discussion, usually between myself and co-host Mr. David Alt. And then it's just, 2 bros with a podcast, but not that kind of 2 bros with a podcast, the good kind.
Well, you keep it to 2. I'm pretty sure that when you get the 3rd bro, that's what ruins everything, right? So as long as you was just a 2 bro limit for the podcast.
That's a sign.
2 bro limit.
And we're not even bothered about being 6 feet apart.
No. No. Oh, let's not even go there. This is going to devolve quickly if we go there. Anyway.
I'm just glad those content warnings were there, so, you know.
Yeah, exactly. So that format's pretty unique. You know, a lot of audio drama focuses on, well, I guess I would describe it kind of broadly as immersion. Like they want to keep the audience in the story, in that sense of like suspended disbelief. But you kind of do this little chaser afterwards where you get into the kind of the wheres and the whys and the motivations and the backgrounds of it. How did you come up with that idea? Was it quite intentional, or was it well, we're done recording and then we left the microphone on and we just started chatting?
I'm going to give you the very satisfying answer of I can't quite remember.
That's the best one.
When I approached David about the podcast, I was thinking purely audio drama, and then David and I just, we're friends and we have a good rapport. So I think it just naturally came about. And I think that the chaser is a good way of putting it, because so many people who say, I would love to listen to your podcast, but I get scared easily, or I'm not really into horror. I might give it a go because there's aftercare. So, and that's a way that we wanted to introduce people to stories they may not have heard of before, which is why certainly for British people, we did The Devil and Tom Walker, which was a story that I don't think many British people might know, but Americans certainly would, I would imagine. Yeah. So, and then we kind of just wanted to talk about that and introduce that. And then sometimes when you have a story with heavy themes, I feel a responsibility for, I've just said aftercare as a joke there, but really as aftercare to kind of talk about that, No one was harmed in the making of this production except my mental well-being.
And even that is, some self-reflection on, okay, I should be more sustainable in my production, but that's a whole nother hour we could talk about,
It's really interesting you bring that up, because that's very much the position I've kind of found that my host spots on Pseudopod have evolved into over the last couple of years. It's almost a kind of small A academic thing, where the story is finished and I or whoever the host is nails it to a table and goes, okay, this can't get you anymore. Let's walk through all the bits that were a bit frightening.
Yeah.
And it's the idea of I love pleasing terrors as a concept. The idea of here is something which is going to frighten you, but frighten you just enough.
Well, it's kind of a concept in gaming as well, isn't it? It's the idea that players want to be challenged, but not so challenged that they can't overcome it. And I guess an interesting question for me to ask on the pleasing terrors idea is, like, have you developed lines that you draw? Like, what do you define as pleasing? Like, is there certain types of content that you will avoid? Or are there certain, like, lines that don't get narratively crossed when you're selecting what it is you want to work with?
Yeah, so I'm a liar because I don't... You've caught me. I've been rumbled within 15 minutes.
That may be a new time limit. Have to write that one down.
Because I had these lines, and then when we were doing season 2, I was like, David, I think it's time to push some boundaries. And then it was just... It became about the story. What stories do we want to tell and why? So we started experimenting with how we can use audio to tell stories in a unique way. How can we tell stories about topics that are not for everybody? And I'm a big romantic, and that's my favorite author said
many choices of your stories for sure.
Yeah, and one of my favorite authors said you should never have romance and sex in ghost stories, and I'm like, nah, it's the 21st century. I'm going to do it.
Are you kidding?
That episode of Star Trek The Next Generation no one likes to admit they watched and really liked would beg to differ, sir.
Precisely.
And how else would we know that Captain Picard's go-to move is a little hop?
Right?
Exactly.
Horny and chipper about it. I love
Thank you for mentioning Star Trek so soon.
By all means, right? When do we get the next episode of Strange New Worlds? Friday night? Yes.
Tomorrow.
Yes.
Are you watching? Are you enjoying Strange New Worlds?
I am, and I'm a lifelong Star Trek fan, and I love so much about it. I love the philosophy of Star Trek, everything about it. I love it so much. But I'm also a warm-blooded man, and half the cast of Strange New Worlds, nay, all of the cast of Strange New Worlds are gorgeous. And
Yes.
I'm like, I saw this thing on Twitter today. It was a picture of Spock, and it said, "Good God, man, he's all tit."
Or like him leaning over the science counter and he's like, "Oh, Captain, I dropped my pen." I'm like,
Yes.
Okay, yes, great. We all know that Strange New Worlds is new Trek for new people. It's also bisexual approved, and we appreciate it greatly. Thank you.
I was saying to my
very
partner
much.
the other day, I was like, "Oh, I'm gay right now. No, I'm straight right now. Now I'm bi." It's just
There's just a little
sexuality
indicator
truly
in the
is fluid.
screen. Corner of the screen based on who's on board, right? Exactly. It's just, yes.
Just have like a gauge that changes
Is
colour.
like command crew sexual a label that we can use?
Oh, it is now.
That's why we're pleased to let all of the watchers know right now that CBS have given us permission to do a Strange New Worlds watch along.
Yeah. God, wouldn't that be amazing? Okay, we can't go down that path because that's all we're gonna. Right.
Or
So the tone's been lowered very quickly. I do
We're
apologize.
gonna have to have a whole other conversation during the break. Right. So we were talking about themes and boundaries and aftercare, which is fantastic. I had another question. Quick. Vamp. Well, I remember what my question was.
Pleasing Terrors. One name springs instantly to mind. M.R. James.
Who?
Thank you. Well done.
Yes.
So
well done.
I think my question is, what do you think hurt him? Because
or scared him, or
because
okay, you can like Mad Lib an M.R. James story, right? A young male something goes into the countryside to visit an older, distinguished male role model.
I have to stop you there because you're
and-
going to crack the code to my podcast here. So,
I'm giving away too much of the secrets. Okay. I saw.
this interview is over.
No. If it had been for that, it would have been a young, confused ex, played by David Alt, wanders into the country where he meets an older, distinguished Blake, played by Kareem, who, that would have been the Mad Lib.
Yeah.
What
Wow.
Mark's not telling you is he's holding eye contact whilst at the same time moving a script to the waste binner.
Go on.
No. So, like, there are several, what I would call, I'm trying to move away from the word classic because classic has a lot of baggage associated with it. So I'm trying to move on to the word kind of like cornerstone stories of horror that you've picked out. Dorian Gray, you're currently crowdfunding or like doing donation support for, I think the plan is In the Mountains of Madness. Is that correct?
We actually got that funded.
Yes.
Well, then you
I
need
have-
to update your Ko-fi goal because when I checked it earlier today, it says you were still trying to reach it.
Yeah, I mean, I just need money, guys. So, like...
Let us quickly plug our guest's Patreon page, shall we? Right? But no. Let's get into that though, because to my knowledge, you've never crowdfunded in the like Kickstarter, Indiegogo way any of your work. It's always been through. Just Patreon was just brand new, isn't it?
Well, actually, I have done a Kickstarter,
Oh,
and that's why you have never seen me do another one.
Oh,
valid.
that's
In 2015, I have a prop for this. In 2015, we successfully ran a Kickstarter for Shadows at the Door, an anthology,
Woohoo!
which is an anthology of stories written by writers who I knew and know and respect, and just adore their work. And a story of mine, and it was Shadows at the Door was a blog, and I thought, wouldn't it be cool to do a book? And we did a Kickstarter, and it was one of the most stressful things I've ever done.
Amen.
And I won't do it again.
They're really, people think of them as, like a way to generate a lot of buzz in a short period of time and therefore generate success. And I think there is some truth to that.
Mhm.
But they don't see the 18 months to 2 years worth of a long tail that goes into all the work that you still have to do even after the money has come in and gone right back out again.
Yeah.
And how fulfillment becomes this nasty word hanging over your head forever when you're doing Kickstarters.
We have a couple of friends, one of whom successfully funded a project a decade ago and has just run through a 10-year series of glass doors of work and health stress and is now finally in a position where he's able to push the book out. and another of whom
Wow.
had a very low kind of target goal for a thing to tie into one of their books, which they exceeded in 2 weeks. They blew through every single stretch goal. And a little while ago, they sat down and ran the numbers and realized that after fulfillment and costs for every stretch goal, they were making a whopping £300.
Wow.
Yeah.
And they are a popular an older model, and it's very popular. But kind of the expectation, I think, that goes into what a stretch goal is, and that it's going to be a physical thing that gets sent to somebody,
Hmm.
is embedded kind of in the consciousness of supporters, but it's not really supportable by small creators. And I think we're seeing it evolving to exactly what you're doing now, which is the idea of patronage, which is more about, you know, access or early access to things that are much more sustainable to produce, as opposed to, you know, lots of people are in situations where they run Kickstarters or Patreons to make the money, to pay the things, to fulfill the Patreon, to make the money. You know, it becomes this kind of full-time job to take them over.
Yeah, I did months of prep work. I even did press releases. I got into a lot of local papers for it, and I was sat there, you know, thinking, "God, I've done everything I need to do," and it was still very stressful and very difficult. And it became it, even though I was working full time at the time, it was still full time running this Kickstarter. And then I I honestly get frustrated with how Kickstarter works because they do like they get if any Kickstarter project is put together well, it'll be a project we love, which kind of makes it redundant, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And then I get frustrated at seeing some Kickstarters where I don't know, it's like a game and everybody wants it and it gets funded millions and millions of pounds within like the first half an hour or something, and then there are other people who I don't know. I just the unfairness of it, and also Kickstarter moved to the blockchain, so I don't
Yeah.
want to support that as well.
Yes, they did.
I think there was this perception for a while there in independent creation that all you needed was a Kickstarter and it would be the great equalizer, that it would solve the whole problem that independent projects really have at their core, which is how are you signaling all of the noise? How do you
Mm,
attract people who are going to identify and connect with your product and stick with you? You know, it's that very old 100, you know, 1,000 true fans idea, which talk about a theory that stood the test of time. It has, but there was this perception, probably supported by Patreon itself for all, I mean, Kickstarter itself for all I know, that, you know, oh, you just have to run one of these and then thousands of people will find you and you'll get all the money you ever need. And it's like, no, that didn't work. That's not
mm.
how that worked. So what is your kind of like preferred way? Like, how is Shadows at the Door something that you put out there that people can financially support, and how?
Yeah. So
Because your
my
Patreon is quite new, if I understand.
it's relatively new, yeah, and well, I revamped it recently because I've frankly just figured out how to use it better.
Fair.
Um, yeah, and I'm not the most business minded person, but I'm very passionate about stories being for everyone. And you know, I just think everyone deserves to have that story if they want it, and I think and I am optimistic about it. So I think if people have the money, and if they enjoyed a story of mine and they have the money, they will give me a couple quid for it. I would like to think that's how it works.
Mm.
It's not how it works, but if 10 people listen to it, and then one person puts in a quid, that's great.
Yeah,
You
that's
know,
really
I don't
good.
give a quid to every story I enjoy for free. I can't afford it, and everyone else is like that too. So the more Shadows grows, the more I'll catch those people where we're one of their favorites, and they'll want to support us and things
Mm.
like that. And I'm hoping that we appeal to people who want to see more stories from northern creators. I would say queer creators, but I think everyone who has a podcast in fiction is queer, so that doesn't really count now.
I would struggle to think of counterexamples because I think it is the rule of which there are exceptions as opposed to it being the exception.
Yeah,
For
queer
sure.
people are wonderful and creative, so it
Right?
just tends to happen. Yeah, and yeah, so I hope that that's how it works that way, and then I kind of things changed in my life about what are we on now? good Lord, we're on June. So about 5 months ago, I've started to do this full time. This is me trying to have a go of it.
Congratulations.
Good job.
Thank you. It's quite the gamble. It's
was
the
gonna
dice
say,
are still rolling.
I feel like I have to say congratulations. It's like, yay, but also, ah!
Yeah, as I say, that dice is still rolling. But I had this conversation with David, and I said, look, at the end of the day, we can rely on charity, and people are very generous. Don't get me wrong; people really do help us with that. But it's still a drop in the ocean compared to production costs. It is amazing how much doing a podcast like this costs, even if you're not paying people that much and not paying yourself at all. And David doesn't get paid at all. So it's like, for now. So sorry, David. So it's, and me, but it's like, how do we do this? So we decided for 2 reasons to move our more relaxed conversational content on the Patreon feed. Because I kept seeing these lists for like top 50 horror podcasts, and Shadows wasn't on them. And I was in Luxembourg with David, so we had a lot of time to talk. And I said, David, I'm getting a bit self-conscious that we're not on these lists. And he said, do you think people think we're not scary because of the silly conversational episodes that we put out in the middle? And I was like, maybe. So we decided to make our messaging a little bit more clear. And we thought we would incentivize that by putting it into the Patreon. The Patreons get the Patreon supporters get episodes early and ad-free, and then we joined the Realm Network, who have been wonderful, frankly. I can honestly say, like, no looking back, going to Realm. So they have connected us with advertisers and have no influence on the show. So it's great.
Wow.
And we're hoping that'll help.
Yep.
Excuse me?
I said, that sounds like a good distribution arrangement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so but we
just
still
add that to my list of questions. La, la, la. Okay, keep going.
But the thing is, we want to have full episodes available in full for everyone. It is a very good business decision to do the opposite, to put the occasional one in there. And I have been. Oh, did I drop out?
You're still here. It's just saying that you're having a little hiccup on your end. So,
oh dear.
Talking. You're all good.
Okay, I'll keep talking. So it would be a very good business decision for us to put the odd episode behind a paywall, like a full one, but I can't bring myself to do it. So, and I'm hoping that our commitment to free stories for everyone will appeal to people.
You are preaching to the choir here, my friend.
Yes.
Very much so. But it is really hard to kind of find that balance, isn't it? Because so much of the way that people expect to consume digital content on the World Wide Web is about the expectation of pay gates and the expectation of, well, I pay a little bit more and I get things that other people don't have. But those of us who are passionate about, no, everybody gets access to things, we have to get real creative about how do we not make it another whole job to create the special shiny things for the people who support us, when what we want to be doing is creating the thing that we love, that we want to share with everybody in the world.
Yeah.
It's filthy capitalism.
Well, this is why I do what I can. Like, so in the Patreon, there's all these extra things. Like, for example, the episode that just came out recently, all of the behind-the-scenes information that we don't discuss in the show is on the Patreon. Nice. It is precisely what David Lynch would not do, and that breaks my heart. But David Lynch has more money than me, so I need to do it.
I'm just saying, David Lynch, if you wanted to fix this situation, you could just write Mark a check, and that would take care of it right now.
Or even just, like, if you can believe it, Shadows at the Door is amazing. That would just, like, if we could just get him to say that.
or just send you the monkey.
I love it. One of our mods has put the Ko-fi link into the chat for David Lynch.
David Lynch. Do you have Netflix?
I do.
Right. Have you found the 17-minute David Lynch movie?
Yeah, I did. The monkey one.
The monkey one. Just have him send you the monkey. Just, have
Alasdair, I can't afford to maintain a monkey.
He's got to do time. The monkey prisons have all closed. Just think of it as community service. Watch the movie. Go to Netflix. Search David Lynch monkey. It will all make sense.
Monkey. You say it makes sense. You say that.
Yeah, like Twin Peaks makes sense.
Makes sense, right?
Twin Peaks has an arc, you know.
No.
There will now be 5 people in my Twitter feed when this goes live, and I know at least 2 of them will be like, actually, it does. It's just very subtle. Like, yes, okay.
Sure, yes. Okay, fine. Very well then. Right, so, speaking of Filthy Lucre, you say that the funding for Mountains of Madness has now completed, is now successful.
Yes.
Oh, tell us more.
Yeah, basically, because that was another thing. I was like, how do I get more money when we need it? And it was like, hey, if you can get me this amount, and I just quickly put together how much I think it would cost to put it together, we'll commit to it. And that's the deal, is we'll commit to it. So on the Patreon, for example, I've published the names of the episodes and what order they're coming out in. It has changed a few times. And then I've said there'll be a brief hiatus of probably 2 months, and then the Mountains of Madness will come out.
Mm-hmm.
In probably 2 acts, because I really wanted to do it for an episode in season 3, but it's just too big.
It's too long. Yeah, exactly.
And I thought, this is a mini series, but it's not as long as Dorian, thank God. So
I have a really stupid social media suggestion for you on that one. When that goes live, point it at Guillermo del Toro.
I have wondered whether it would be a very good idea to point it at Guillermo or a very bad one.
From what I have seen of
Are
his
you
online...
striving for greatness or avoiding disappointment? Right? As
you know
Brendan...
what? A lot of my successes have been just kind of like, it's kind of like just like doing it and then closing your eyes and then hoping it goes well.
Okay, it's done. Don't tell me, don't look. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Everything I've seen about his online persona suggests that if, let's say hypothetically, a fantastic Northern horror podcast happened to knock Mountains of Madness out of the park in audio form,
which
like
is,
they
let's be
will,
honest, the foregone conclusion
which is the
of this
foregone
conversation.
conclusion.
Let's be honest.
If you were to point him at that, he is far more likely to go, the fuck, look at this shit, it's amazing, probably in that exact tone of voice, than have you killed.
Right?
So,
and also, Guillermo, we've got Tom Cruise! Because Tom Cruise was meant to be in it, right? In the movie.
Hell, he was, wasn't he? And now Tom Cruise versus Cthulhu.
Let's not go there.
Okay,
He could be
but
watching.
you don't understand. There's a whole subset of people who want to watch him suffer that would work for. You know, there's many audiences with many approaches to that situation. I'm just saying that.
And the horny's back.
Yeah, let's just move on. Let's just swiftly move on. Right? Can Guillermo call a hit on you? Probably not. I mean, right? There you go.
You know, he's just a guy. He does stuff. He's just like you and me. He's tall. He likes horror. Love it. You should do it.
The big tall guys who love horror club.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, we should get t-shirts.
Right?
In fact, that's exactly your approach. Guillermo, I notice you are tall and like horror. I too am tall and like horror. Here's some horror I know we both like.
Please enjoy my horror,
Please enjoy my horror.
You know, because we're both tall.
Because we're both tall.
Exactly. Oh, all right, speaking of filthy capitalism, we should probably do one of those ad breaks. So, folks, why don't we take a couple minutes and regroup and let us all get our minds out of the gutter thinking about Tom Cruise being
that'll go well.
destroyed by Cthulhu. I wasn't expecting this to be so naughty, but it's really fun. And I'm rolling with it.
I need to go email Tom Cruise. So.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. He needs a minute anyway. So, put Nick Cage in your Mountains of Madness. Okay.
Oh my God. Wow.
Okay, we're going to think about that one. Right, we're going to take an ad break. Get up and stretch if you need it. Make sure you've got water. It's warm. We all need to hydrate. Maybe you need to take a medication. Maybe you need a snack. Maybe somebody in your household needs one. We'll be back in just a couple of minutes.
Maybe you need to text Tom Cruise and go,
Maybe
hey, Mark's emailing you. Reply.
Tom Cruise. When you text Tom Cruise, send him Mark Nixon's Patreon account.
Yes.
Okay? We'll be right back.
You're back
All
in the
right.
room.
And we're back. So, why Mountains of Madness? And I asked that question in a loaded fashion because we all know who the author of that story is.
Providence, Rhode Island's premier Celine Dion impersonator.
Resident bigot, exactly. So is the intention to like deliberately power the production of the episode off him spitting in his grave, or like what's the intent you're going for?
I see you've been hacking my computer. So
anything
Cut the hard line. Cut the hard line.
Anything that turned that man's corpse into an energy generator works for me.
So since the early days of the podcast, listeners have been asking us for Lovecraft, and my memory of reading him as a teenager was like, yeah, he's okay. You know, I thought he was a bit better than Poe, but not as good as James. And I started rereading Lovecraft in season 2, and I thought, oh, this is actually not as good as I remember.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the general conversation about Lovecraft was about all of the horrible things about him. So I didn't really fancy it, but I've always been, I've always kind of liked the idea of the challenge of doing a Lovecraft story and making him spin in his grave.
Excellent.
So, you know, with just like not blind casting, but casting purposely, not as a gimmick either. But you know, it has to be the right reason. And at the Mountains of Madness is one of his good ones.
Yeah.
So
without that, you don't get the thing.
I agree.
Yeah.
It is one of those again cornerstone stories. You don't get the thing, I think, without the Mountains of Madness. And you're in fine company. There is an entire, practically generation of horror writers who have certainly gained reputation and developed their skills on, I'm going to piss off this bigot by re-examining
I have
his
to
work.
confess, it is one of the very few times on Pseudopod where I don't behave.
Anytime there's a Lovecraft story on Pseudopod, you kind of let fly.
And anytime there's a Lovecraft story on Pseudopod, there is always an editorial conversation, and it is always me going, really? We want me on this?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
The thing is, though, I think as a literary and horror community, we're a little bit hypocritical because we're all jumping on the Lovecraft hate wagon. But why don't we do it to Poe? Or even Dickens? I've been very guilty of praising Charles Dickens and not talking about the shit he did. So,
right.
And M.R. James had a sexist streak. So we kind of, it's cool to hate Lovecraft, and it is cool to hate Lovecraft. But, you know, there are others to hate too.
I have an observation about that trend, in that it seems like American horror authors seem to be more piled upon than those from perhaps the island I'm currently sitting on. I don't know whether that's just because...
Oh, sir, we're not racist in the village. We just don't like people wanting from the village.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Yeah, that's a let's a whole nother conversation.
I'm just thinking of a very wealthy British author who I wish more people would hate. So let's not get started on that one.
Where's your boat? Are there any orcas nearby?
Orca summer.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So Mountains of Madness. Yep. Okay.
That makes a ton of sense, and it's an interesting text too. I mean, it's one part horror, one part science fiction.
Yeah,
you know, so it makes perfect sense to do that because it's a fun multi-genre crossover,
and it's nautical as well. And I really, for a long time, I want to do one on a ship. So
we a few years ago did a pseudopod that was an epistological story set on a shipwreck, and I think the editorial conversation was me going, "My birthday's in October." But thank you, because those are my two favorite things.
Yes, very, very.
You know,
much
is
so.
it a spooky letter from someone who's probably dead? Yes. Is it at sea? Yes. Get in, brilliant.
Do we go past a giant oil refinery platform off the coast?
Oh,
yes.
Did you see the trailer for that new game from the Chinese Room a couple of weeks back?
No.
What's it called?
I think it's called What Must Rise or something similar. These are the folks who did Dear Esther, which is an incredibly good pseudo-supernatural game, and Everybody's Gone to the Rapture, which is the best game about terrifying 1980s First Contact ever. And the trailer might as well have just been that old Bob Dylan video of them just standing in an alleyway holding postcards, and the postcards saying things like, "You're going to buy this, Alasdair." No, really. No, you are. Look, it's a big orange helicopter and it's in trouble. Look, it's an oil rig. You love this shit. You love it. Buy the fucking game, Alasdair. It's out now. give us your money. And the whole time I'm just like, okay.
Sam
Yes.
Lake's doing that to me right now with Alan Wake 2. I've been hoping for 13 years, and now it's
She
happening.
likes puns, Mark. The new co-lead likes puns.
Yep. But like,
Ah!
do you know what? I'm not this kind of person normally, but I watched the trailer for Alan Wake and I was like, oh, I see. They made this game just for me. I see. Yes. Normally I share, but this, I'm like,
No, this is mine.
But isn't it one of the Xbox exclusive games, though?
It's one of the reasons we're looking at
I have to get an Xbox because
Starfield.
Starfield is only going to be on Xbox, and I'm like, you cannot give me Space Skyrim and not expect me to invest in the hardware.
You get a
to play it.
forklift. That's your buddy.
You get a little buddy, a little robot buddy. How can I not have that?
this
game?
is why we all need more Patreon supporters.
Yes.
Yes.
I
Excellent
mean, you know,
segue. Well done.
obviously we'll make art and shit, but you know.
Yeah. Guy, I'm telling you right now, the Mountains of Madness will be so cool if you can provide me a PS5 and it'll be so cool.
It'll be so awesome, and then the whole ending of it will be like a whole nother episode of you and David all talking about how awesome it is, which sounds great.
I do also want to just bring up the first episode of season 3 for a moment because it's so good.
Thank you.
It's so fucking good. It's so well written. And you have a framing narrative, which is David Alt and Kareem being polite at one another. And that's just my favourite thing.
Do you know, one of my favorite genres is awkward, repressed men talking. So, I love it. Honestly, when I started writing, like an editor complimented, because you really capture awkwardness well. I was like, thank you.
There is an academic verbal slap fight in this, which I have witnessed. I have seen people get into it like that.
Yeah. And it was a joy to write, and I haven't even been to uni, so
We're trying. I would imagine we're trying very hard not to spoil too many things, but
yeah, I was wondering about that because is it too early?
Someone
is it
in
not?
the chat is referring to Troughton as Professor Blowout, and I love that so much. Tell us a little bit about Professor Troughton and why you hate him as much as you clearly do.
Well, do you know what it is? So, in one of my very first stories, I wrote "Leave a Light On For Me." It was a full prose story, and it was about Troughton was a bit younger in this story, and then he died. And I published it on the website. And a couple people just got in touch and they said, "Why did he die?" I'm like, "Because he's a dickhead, and and he's in a ghost story." Like, I didn't write him to be likable, but people were like, "Oh, I love him." And then I went to an
okay, yeah.
and I went to an M.R. James symposium, and I got to meet a lot of, like, you know, my people, like ghost story fans and stuff. I said my people, a lot of them were Tories, so not those ones, but you know, some of them, 3 of them were no. Look, I was in a tweed jacket. That wasn't helping. But anyway.
You have an excuse. You were trying to pass.
And there was someone there who was a big fan of this story, and they just introduced me to other people. Said, "You've got to read this story about this professor he wrote." I'm like, "Really?" And then I was like, "Oh shit, I'm going to have." And then when it was time to adapt it for the podcast, I thought, I guess he survives now, and I will keep writing for him for as long as I feel he has stories in him. Mm-hmm. Fortunately, he has at least a handful more because they're all in here. And then when I do those, more might happen. I don't know. So the next story I am in the middle of making, which is our big season finale, is ridiculous. And like with a character like Troughton, you have to test him. And you have to do different things with him. Otherwise, he becomes stale or academic Scooby-Doo.
This is the thing which I really, really love about it. I love the fact that you've had these awful things happen to this moderately terrible human. And instead of them breaking him, or instead of him doing the Scooby-Doo route, and as a quick sidebar, I can tell you the exact moment where I noped out of the X-Files. And it is the point in the first movie where Scully passes out shortly before the UFO goes overhead and wakes up once it's gone. And that was my first experience of the, okay, I'm going to head out kind of sensation.
Big F you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I love that he's had these terrible experiences and they suck and he hates them. But at the same time, he's like, I can do something with this. I have the academic skills to understand this to death, so I'm going to do it. And it is such an incredibly refreshing and pure character arc, made all the more so by the fact that Troughton's default emotional state is all right.
Yeah, it really shouldn't be happening to him. You know, it should be like Torchwood sweeps in and does it instead, but it's him. You know, so
There's no justice.
Is there
it's just
anybody
him.
else here? Please, anyone?
Right?
Please.
But like, I'm self-conscious sometimes when I talk about writing, because the sentence I'm about to say is pretty cringe. But I was writing a story for him, and he started telling me what he was going to do.
Oh no, I've had that. That's totally legit.
And then the feed freezes, and if that doesn't freak everybody out, I don't know what does. You doing okay? Because you
hiccuped a little bit. You're back now.
You said, and then he started telling me what the story was, and then it just paused, and I'm like, that was perfect. Knock it off.
Oh, my internet must be dodgy. I do apologize.
Okay. It's okay.
So where was I? Yeah, and it was Settle Thy Studies, which was the final episode of season 2, and I knew that this guy was repressed. He was gay. He probably didn't know he was gay. He didn't really have interest in sex. And then I just started writing this monologue. And it's one of the best things I've written, I think. And I love it. And so many people
in the chat right now are just resonating with it very much. So.
Yeah, thank you.
People are saying it's their favorite monologue.
So I thought to reward him for this remarkable, growth and insight, I would force him to get some. I shouldn't talk about it. Actually, it's a spoiler for the episode. Do bad things to him.
Force him to confront that.
If you are a fan of Supernatural or of any incarnation of John Constantine, you are going to find the Professor Troughton stories incredibly enjoyable. Because
you said magic words.
They tread some loosely similar boards, but with far more open university. It just.
Do you know what the thing is? Right, I'm aware of the character. I saw the Keanu Reeves film when it came out, and I was writing this story, and I went, "Hang on, isn't this similar?" And then they went, "Oh no, it's actually very different." I was like, "Good, thank you." And now people are telling me they're like, "Mark, you should read Constantine." I'm like, "Yeah, I think I will actually. He sounds very cool." I'm like, "Oh, he's bi." He's what?
He dates King Shark.
Nice.
Yes. And he's played by Matt Ryan, who's one of my all-time favorites. You can do no wrong. Exactly. Yes, you will vibe with it very much. Okay, I'm gonna ask another question now. I just gotta remember what it was.
Oh, thank you so much, Yami. We have the Troughton stories in listen order dropped into the chat, which is really cool.
Believe, Settle Thy Studies, What Queer Things Befell Him, which is What Queer Things Befell Him is season 3, episode 1, isn't it?
Where Queer Things Befell is season 3. So it goes, Leave a Light On For Me, Silent Warnings, Blessed Be the Man, Settle Thy Studies, Where Queer Things Befell.
Cool.
Okay.
Cool.
Fantastic. We talked about the format.
And if you like, I can give you a little exclusive. If you're not in the Patreon feed, the next one is called To the Flame.
Given how 301 ends, I suspect that has some extra significance. Jolly good. Jolly.
You'd be surprised, but
I look forward to.
So let's talk about the other thing that you have recently had a great deal of buzz about. And that would be your casting for season 3. What do you want to talk to us about?
Well, the casting has been exciting because I had this great actor play an actor in Romeo and Juliet. He's called Alasdair Stewart.
That's very sweet.
And we had the absolute joy of having you cameo in Dorian, so thank you for that.
That is honestly one of my favorite types of role. I've been very lucky to do that type of thing twice now. And in both cases, it's that kind of delayed action thing where a couple of weeks after it goes live, someone goes, "Were you in the..." Yeah. Yes, I was.
Stealth cameos. Love it.
So yeah, no, so it was interesting because when the podcast started, it was just me and David, and it was like, "Hey, David, do you want to read these stories?" And then as soon as we were developing, I thought, "Nah, full audio drama." And he said, "That'll be a lot of work," and I was like, "I know," and
Yeah, I know,
but
but the vision, the muse, right?
I love it. I just think it's the best way to tell horror stories. Frankly, I mean, I love movies, I love books, but audio drama is just mwah, it's just
100%.
Well, all of Apple podcast ratings agrees with you. It is the genre of all genres.
yeah. So with season 2, but then it kind of, we realized after, what was it, 10 episodes, we were like, well, okay, we're very limited as to what we can play. White guys, and so I just happened, in fact, it was at Pod UK, I met Jake and Alana, and I was like, I was thinking about more actors, and got to hear some of their work, and then we expanded the cast a bit. Erica just told me she was going to be in Shadows.
That sounds like Erica.
That's legit.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
valid. Just
I don't think I had much of a say.
scoot
But
over. Here comes range, right? Exactly.
oh, I was so glad because Erica is phenomenal. And then, and then Dorian, I was like, dare I ask Kareem? Actually, I'm going to be really honest. I've told Kareem this, but I was not aware of Kareem's work. I just said, hey, we have a lot of white people on our podcast. I would love to work with non-white actors, and Kareem approached me. I heard his reel. I was like, oh my god, you're incredible. You would be the perfect Basil. And then put him in there. And then my line has always been, I immediately learned Kareem is a quote unquote big deal, and and
now he's blushing in the chat, which is the desired effect here.
Exactly.
Everybody needs to love bomb on Kareem for the evening. We picked the fan art to love bomb on Kareem this evening, by all means.
But with season 3, and then because what had happened is with a little bit of vanity casting, I was lucky enough to get Professor Elemental in season 2.
I love that guy so much.
Yeah, he's great.
Freaking brilliant.
We're still in contact. He really loves horror, and he's just phenomenal. I was like, hey, do you want to be in the show? But that episode did really well, and I was like, oh, maybe having the occasional big name would help with that, because it's a marketing thing, And then also I was like, hang on,
their audience, and yeah.
Yeah, and then I was like, oh god, what have I been saying on the show? Because sometimes I might be sat there going, James Callis is the best ever, and then I'm like, and then you might want to approach that person. You're like, suddenly, was I professional when I was speaking about you or something?
Yeah, right.
But my goal was to get one guest star, and while I was thinking about this,
how'd that go, Mark?
Do you know, it's weird. It's so weird, because I was thinking about one guest star, and the opportunity to work with Lani Tupu presented itself almost by coincidence at the same moment. And then so I ran with it. And then I was like, okay, we've got Lani Tupu. And then I was like, yeah, I mean, I loved Farscape. I don't even know if many people know who he is these days, but I think he's tremendous. You just, not only is it a name, but it's like, oh my God, this guy's a great actor. And I can't wait for people to hear his episode, which is actually the next one, which is going to come out in July.
Amazing.
Yeah, and then I'll be honest. So I need to respect the privacy of the people I'm working with, but another voice actor, it fell into my lap. I was like, it's like, hey, do you want to work with blank? And I was like, Jesus Christ, what did you just...
I'm sorry, could you say that again slowly? I think I was having difficulty understanding.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, okay. But I think, to kind of cut to the chase of what I'm saying, I think after 2 seasons in a mini-series, we'd established our tone. We'd established some episodes I'm particularly proud of. And what I was able to do was to say, hey, hi, you might not know me. I'm Mark Nixon. I do this. Here are 2 episodes that are very different that I'm very proud of. The examples I normally give are our adaptation of A Warning to the Curious and Bread and Salt.
Good choices.
Thank you. And I'll say, hey, I don't have much of a budget at all. It's kind of cheeky to ask, and then it's like, if you ask the right people. So Sacha Dhawan, I've been a fan of ever since I saw him in Mark Gatiss' adaptation of The Tractate Midoth in 2013.
which he's amazing. Jesus, that's 10 years ago.
Don't do that, Mal.
Oh, fuck me.
Yeah.
Oh.
So, and I was like, and the thing is, I used to always say, like, oh, like, hey, Matt Smith's leaving. Who do you want to be Doctor Who? And I'd be like, Sacha Dhawan. And then that was always my thing. And then he was in Doctor Who one day. I was like, oh, well, he's never going to be the Doctor now. Oh, who's he playing? What's he doing? He's the Master. So, all right, kind of wish fulfillment, I guess. So, but yeah, it was like, it's like you wouldn't approach Tom Cruise because he's never shown an interest in ghost stories or audio drama. Sacha Dhawan has done that. He's worked with Big Finish, stuff like that. So it was approaching, I would like to say approaching the right people, being very honest immediately about your budget.
Yeah, that's the big one, isn't it?
Yeah, because I think you are insulting if you hide it. You are insulting if you lie about it. Yeah, and then it's just accidents just kept happening. I can say this one because this one happened publicly, but I was just enjoying. I was on a Big Finish binge, and I thought I'm going to tweet about what Big Finish episodes, productions are my favorites. And one of them was Gareth David Lloyd's. He starred in it and he wrote it, and he just tweeted at me and he went, "Thanks, mate." And I went, "Hey, thanks." I was like, "You would never want to work together, would you?" Because I know he likes horror films. And he was like, "Here's my email address. Let's talk." And I was like, "But this was all on Twitter, so I can say this. This was public." So like, I don't know. It's kind of like throw it at the wall and see what sticks. And then I looked at the wall at one point. I was like, "Oh, shit.
A lot of stuff stuck to that." Okay.
Yeah. So
I had somehow missed that you got Gareth David Lloyd. And it is such a perfect fit. Because the type of stuff you do, and his just very quiet, very focused, cheery intensity is such a good fit for how you write.
Thank you. Well, he's actually performing in one that he's written. Yeah, because he's written for Big Finish, and his stuff on Big Finish is very good. So, and I was saying to him, I was like, Gareth, I've always wanted like a Welsh story. I love the Welsh accent. I hope that doesn't sound patronizing. It's lovely. And it's just great. And I thought, I don't know enough about the culture to do the research to do it myself. And Gareth's like, "Oh yeah, I've had some ideas about like Welsh folklore and stuff like that." So, and we're now we've hired some actors who speak Welsh. So it's gonna be towards the end of the season. But you're looking at a Welsh folk horror written and starring Gareth David Lloyd.
And if he wrote the Torchwood, I think he wrote, which is the one involving the nightmare horse in the small village and Yanto going home for Christmas.
He didn't write that one. Actually, it was a partner, two partners who also write together. They wrote that one, but that the Grey Mare you're thinking of,
that's such a good one.
Yeah,
such a good one.
Yeah, so good. But yeah, and then it just, like I say, it's happened. The downside to having this wall with all of these actors stuck to it, which is a weird thing to say, is
metaphorically, I hope.
I worry it might appear gimmicky, but I honestly didn't intend for it to snowball the way it did.
Which is probably why it snowballed the way it has.
Maybe
I am a firm believer in that old line, very, very old line now from The West Wing, not from my favorite episode, but it's right up there. It is almost impossible to argue with honesty. And the process you're describing, I really like your work. I noticed that you've done work in the field. I have so little money, but if you would ever like to work together, please let me know. There's no crack in that armor.
Well, yeah.
There's no well, obviously you're gaming me. There's just okay.
But it's also confirmation bias, right? You're looking at, quote, overnight success, unquote, for 10, 15 years worth of very solid hard work.
Right.
And I hope so.
Quality work and sincerity and honesty and being upright. And you've now got this kind of, skexy alignment moment where all of these famous actors are stuck to your wall, which is great for you and a brilliant way to continue expanding your audience and capturing more of that population. But it is not a coincidence.
No.
It is a consequence of your hard work and your skill.
This has not happened by
accident.
accident.
This is me telling you to be proud of this because you've earned it. You've worked hard.
Well, thank you so much. I'm not going to bat that away. I'll just take it. Thank you.
Stick it on the wall with the rest of the actors.
Also, just the image of you closing down for the night, just flicking the last light off by the wall of actors, just kind of stuck
I
in
want
place.
fan art of all these actors just stuck there. Like one of them's all smushed up with the wall. Going, guys, can you turn me around? Can you turn me around, please, guys? I can't see it.
Just the image of you flicking the last light off with going, night actors, night Mark. Just... Well done, cast. Tomorrow I may feed you.
I think the last thing that I need to add to this whole anecdote is, and I think a lot of it has at least one of them was luck. It was absolute luck. But also, I would really say all of the actors who have done it, they're sending the lift back down. You know, I think there's definitely kindness to it, and then sometimes, and then also it's me being organized about it. Hey, I only need an hour of your time.
Yeah,
at your house. For this, like, you tell me what time you're free and I will do that. That kind of thing. So it's like, it's kind of working what is convenient for them and their kindness. And I really think that I need to be honest about that as well. It's like, I definitely feel like no one said, yes, Mr. Nixon, I'm sending the lift back down. But like, you get that sense that they are creatives. They want to help other creatives as well. So it's, yeah, kindness,
and you're
honesty.
The one putting in the work and the hustle to be able to take advantage of that opportunity when it comes your way.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm sure hauling suitcases of microphones across cities and all sorts of other things.
Well, the thing is, everyone learned to do things remotely over Zoom as well.
I mean, that's a whole other topic we could talk about, but there were positive outcomes out of the negativity of COVID, is that all of the creative industries had to learn how to pivot in a way that lots of people who never had the opportunity to experience that before realized, no, this is very sustainable for me. I can do this. I can, I can make time to engage with projects that I might not have otherwise because I can do it in my closet or things like that.
And now you've said that out loud, I spend a lot of time adjacent to Big Finish. I suspect very much like you. And it has been quite noticeable across the last year and a half as they've reconfigured. So there's like a regular stream of stuff for each of the first 12 Doctors now, I think, in addition to everything else. You can see what I think is the start of the gear shift hitting, because I know they always have a very, very long backlog in production of folks recording in their closets and their bedrooms and their understairs cupboards, where suddenly, instead of having to get everybody together for a week in a studio, you can do that when it's allowed, but when you don't, you can record asynchronously and everything moves a little bit faster.
Yeah, I've seen that they have gone back to. Hang on, I'm just gonna put my light on.
No problem. I thought it was an intentional choice. You were just slowly sliding into.
All of this has been about the lighting. No, I have noticed Big Finish have moved back, I think, more to the studio, certainly from their promotional images, which is fine. That's obviously, it worked for them for a long time, but and I imagine I always check out the credits because they'll say where it was recorded as well. But yeah, I mean, there's also they're not that transparent about everything. If I can get in at Big Finish, start writing for them. Just if any of Big Finish, Nicholas Briggs, if you're listening.
He once heckled me live and in person. It was the week before the pandemic, and one of my last journalistic jobs before all of that kind of evaporated was covering the release of the Doctor Who escape rooms. And it turns out there is an escape room about 5 blocks that way in one of the national chains, and they had me come down along with a bunch of other Doctor Who journalists to try it out, and I was the last one in, so I was in there by myself with a staff member. And this is just
yelled at by a Dalek.
Yeah, and this is one of those. There are 10 situational puzzles in the room. You have to stop the Dalek in the stasis field waking up.
Mm-hmm.
And what I didn't realize was that they had Nick in because it was the first day, so he was just doing the Dalek dialogue live. So about half an hour in, out of nowhere, this voice goes, "You are doing quite well." And I just had this weirdly belligerent, nuanced Dalek encouraging me in a way which also meant he wanted to kill me. It was really nice.
If you are having fun, please tell the Guardian. Alasdair, I'm not afraid to say it. If you're in with anyone at Big Finish, give them my name. Tell them I can write, because honestly, it annoys me. I'm like, I know I could do a good job of this. So, and I'm not afraid to ask. I'm not a proud man.
Okay, so the two of you are going to collaborate on a skip-back script or something, right?
I mean, if you are.
Yeah.
Okay,
Hell yes.
fine, cool.
Also,
Look, there's your homework. You're welcome.
I need to send you an email about something related to that anyway, so I shall.
Please do.
Nice. How long have we been talking?
A full hour
at
and
least
counting.
an hour.
Yeah. So we've covered season 3. We've covered the Mountains
No,
of
we
Madness.
haven't. We've mentioned that season 3
We've mentioned
exists.
season 3 in passing. We have embraced a veritable marshland of thirst traps.
Oh yeah, we could talk about Star Trek again, but that would be a whole nother thing.
You don't have time for me to talk about Star Trek.
We don't have time to talk about Star Trek. We don't. We just don't. That has to be a whole nother interview. We have to do that live at a convention if we have conventions again.
Yes, we do.
Nerdy podcasters talk about Star Trek, right?
I'll come dressed as Armus, so I'll just have a big blob suit on as well.
Have you seen the Lower Decks episode where they prank call him?
Yes.
I love that.
Is not Lower Decks the Star Trek fans' Star Trek? It is all about the Easter eggs. It is so glorious. I love it.
It's
so
wonderful.
much.
It is it's a gift.
You know what we're getting this season on Strange New Worlds, right?
Yep. Excited.
I can't wait.
But I want to add, because we're talking so much about the guest stars as well, and I want to talk about some of the writers that we have in season 3. Because Gemma Amor keeps coming back, which is great.
Gemma is the best.
Gemma is tremendous.
Have you seen the travel nightmare that our poor friend has had?
Oh yeah, I've been texting her about it. Soul's Gem. Yeah, they've had a rough time, and then there was a COVID outbreak at Stoker, which because if I'd had the money, would I have gone? I don't know. Would I have been masking? Yeah, it's. But then people who were masking, so it's I'm not going to get into COVID, but I did, but I'm not going to anymore. And yeah, so it's been a nightmare for them. But Gemma keeps coming back, and she's wonderful. And the story she has in season 3 is her best yet, so I'm very excited.
Jesus, and her angle of attack, her baseline quality is phenomenal. Anyway,
yeah.
So
yeah. And then the same approach that I've had with the stars, I've had with the writers. So I ended up just reading a book by Laurel Hightower, and it was tremendous. And then I was like, I'm going to read another one, and I did. It was tremendous. And I was like, I have to work with this woman if I can. Nice. So I reached out, and she was interested. So, and it's the same kind of approach. And then I tried my luck with Jamie Flanagan, and Jamie, who is just a tremendous person.
And a big talk about somebody sending the elevator back up. He does a lot behind the scenes in a lot of places, doesn't he?
Yeah. It was hard actually not to even geek out, because I just love Jamie's work, love Mike's work as well, and then I was like, oh god, I named a character Flanagan after them.
Oh no!
I've actually never mentioned it, and I hope they're not watching, and and I won't mention it in the show. But anyway, but Jamie's just phenomenal. And then Jamie, I was looking at a couple script ideas that Jamie had, and then Jamie, the story that Jamie has for this season is incredible. Laurel's is incredible. Gemma's is incredible. Gareth's is incredible. And then I co-wrote one with Caitlin Marceau, which is the one coming out next month. So the writers on this season, it's a privilege. And I'm already thinking, how will we do just as well in season 4? I'm sure we will, but it's something you think about.
How many episodes are going to be in season
3? 11, including a feature-length one.
Ooh.
The finale is probably going to be 2.5 hours, not including the discussion.
Oh, Troughton's going to have such a bad time.
Yeah, there are 27 characters in that story. Including a cameo, but yeah.
27. Wow.
Oh, I can't wait.
So the idea of I wanted to put I wanted to put Troughton in a no, I've said this on social media, so I can say this. Yeah, Troughton's going to America. something happened recently that makes him want to run away from his problems. So he takes an opportunity that has presented itself in America, and I am basically putting Troughton in an entire town that I have populated with some of the best voice actors in America, and it's incredible. It's so big that I'm having to put together one scene at a time in Audition, so I don't get sickened off of doing it all at once. I'm like, okay, I finished doing Jamie's episode. Now I'm going to do 2 scenes on the last one, and what have you. So I think people will love it.
And I mean, in
I'm
David,
really looking
you
forward
have
to
the
that.
vocal patron saint of disgust. No, almost no one on earth does. Oh God, quite like that man.
Yeah, there are several moments in the story where Troughton is presented with something, and I apologize, something very American, and he's like, oh. He is presented some food and he just goes, "What is that?" At one point.
My guess was going to be Lipton tea, so maybe not that far off.
Well, yeah, I can't say much more, but I
right.
think yeah, David, yeah, patron saint of disgust. I love that. It's very good.
So I was going to ask what your dream project is, but it kind of sounds like you're doing it.
Yeah, I'm living it, mate. Yeah,
Amazing.
Yeah, I have my own production like studio. I mean, it's my house, but like it's like I think it would just be this, but more. Like if just the means to live comfortably, not have to worry about the bills, and to continue working with people who excite me to work with, and to tell the stories that I want to tell, and hopefully people want to listen to the kind of stories I want to tell.
Oh, they do. Trust me, they do.
I
Thank you.
think as far as dreams are concerned, like this but more or this but sustainable is a pretty great place to be.
Yeah, I mean, I'm 35 and I'm already very preoccupied with living my life to the fullest. I wasted I know I like many people, I had my challenges and earlier in life, and made decisions that were not the best for me. And now I'm like, great, now I'm just going to not apologize for the way I live. I'm going to love who I want to love. I'm going to do what I want to do within reason. And, be a good dad, be a good storyteller, try and do all these things. And then I lost a friend quite suddenly earlier in the year. And that just like was a slap in the face of the same message again.
Yeah.
Don't wait, do it.
Yeah.
Find friends, find help, find ways.
Mm-hmm.
Do it.
It means I have little patience for the wrong kind of crowd, though. Like, and unfortunately, Twitter is just like the wrong kind of crowd at the moment. But you need to be on there, so.
Yeah.
There isn't. This is something which I engage with in a couple of different ways. There is a tremendous liberation to that moment where you go, no, I'm good. I'll just do it. It's okay. And I think there are very few industries where coming to that realization is more of a challenge than in the creative fields.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, especially right now, every creative on Earth's ego is under aerial bombardment.
Yeah.
It's not even so much ego, it's just, existence, ability to create.
There were 2 major AI stories within 6 hours of each other today.
Yeah.
And it's been like this for fucking months. And without getting into it, there's been a lot of stuff that's gone on in my professional life across the last couple of years, which has made me kind of cauterize some sections. So hearing you go, no, I'm just gonna fucking do it. You are making the right choice at the right time.
You're doing a great job.
You're doing great.
You were the envy of many people. They're like, that. I want to aim for that.
They should, yeah. I mean, it's not all that comfortable, financially, but yeah. Otherwise, yeah. No, it's yeah. I think it's just this Doctor Who quote from funnily enough, from the Chibnall era, which is not my favorite, but I don't, but it's travel hopefully.
Yes.
and it God, Doctor Who's in my soul, but like that I say that to myself about once a week. Just be hopeful, try, proceed and do it. And
we don't have the kind of time to cover a lot of the stuff
Okay,
from
future
30.
conventions, please
Yes.
schedule us hours and hours and hours to talk about Doctor Who and Star Trek. That would be
Because I mean,
lovely.
if it for you, it's for me. I think it's that line in her first episode about help out where I can.
yeah.
And that's about as close to the core of my DNA that doesn't involve a small UFO in a Kansas field as you can get.
Or on an oil platform.
Or on an oil platform where
In the
something
fog,
terrible is happening
with-
to a
with
big orange
waves
helicopter.
and-
Oh,
helicopters.
did you see the rig?
Do you know what? I didn't, because the advertising for it was very strange.
But you
It was like 3 men on an oil rig. One of them was in Game of Thrones. And I was like, okay, I'm unlike Alasdair, I'm not that into oil rigs. And then someone went, did you know it's spooky? I went, no, I didn't know it was spooky.
Why didn't they fucking say?
There is a moment that Alasdair describes, which we will have to get to after the ad break because it's going to yell at me. So we have to go take an ad break really quick, and then I will tell you what the moment is when we get back. Okay? All right. Sorry, everybody. We'll be right back.
Hey, capitalism.
Thank you, capitalism. Now we have a sport. Now we have a cliffhanger. you've refilled your water. I'm still
Yes, indeed.
eating it. Right. So the moment when Alasdair knew the rig was for him.
There is a point about half an hour into the first episode in the mess hall on the rig where one of the main characters is reading The Crock and Wakes by John Wyndham. This is my favourite book. For those of you unfamiliar with it, I talk about this only, I think, every fourth week on the show, so it's possible you've missed it. It is a story about two married journalists who accidentally discover that the world is being taken over by subaquatic aliens, and the aliens win quite a lot. And there is one I remember the day I bought it. I remember it was in the Bridge Bookshop in Port Erin, which you can look up on Google Maps, and it is a room half the size of this with about 4,000 books in it. And there is a penguin printing of it with a purple cover and a huge Titanic-looking ocean liner, upended, being dragged underwater by tentacles. Ooh. And 12-year-old Alasdair looked at this and went, that's my brand. That's my aesthetic. I'm
surprised you don't have that as a tattoo yet.
Well, I need to make a note of that.
I'll write that down.
This exact copy is the one that is being read in this episode of The Ring. And Marguerite was in
No. Tell the rest of the... Because someone in the episode asks him, hey, what's it about?
And
his response is a failure of imagination.
And I think the fuck was audible through her headphones.
I'm like, oh yep, that movie's that show's got you now, doesn't it?
They got me good.
Alasdair, would you mind sending me a link to that book, please?
Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
Also, there are at least 2 very good audio drama versions of it.
One of which you used to fall asleep.
One of which I used to fall asleep to.
Nice. I've got to say, I do like that 12-year-old Alasdair saw a spooky oil rig, but that's the one for me. I saw a twink, and I was like, that's the book for me, and it was the picture of Dorian Gray. And honestly, it was about the same age.
I was going to say, the big guy... Okay, the very first question that will be asked of the panel, including the 2 of you and Guillermo del Toro, is, okay, first episode of the Big Guy in Horror panel, what is the book that you read at 12 that formed your entire relationship with horror for the rest of your life?
The Tale of the Spooky Twink. Guillermo, it's translated differently, don't worry.
I'm just hearing that in the Tales of the Midnight Society voice now. The Tale of the Spooky Twink. Here comes Mary Shelley. Sup, fuckers! oh, I love that so much. Oh. That's fantastic. All right. What now? Now is the time that you engage in filthy capitalism. Pitch your stuff. Where can everybody find you? I mean, it's been up on the screen the entire night, but please speak eloquently about your need for money.
Oh, I've been dropping hints all night, but
let's stop dropping hints.
So if people want to make, if people like what they're hearing about Shadows at the Door and they want to contribute to the production of it, dropping something in the Ko-fi pot is a wonderful way to do that. It goes straight into production, and it's a nice non-committal way to help. We say it's buying us an Earl Grey, but I'm going to be honest with you, it's not spent on tea. It's spent on sound effects, because those are expensive if you're not able to make them on your own. More importantly, there is the Patreon where it is not just charity. There is a wealth of blogs, of stories that I've just uploaded on there that have, from the depths of my hard drive. There are deep dives of each episode, outtakes, stuff that I edit out of the discussions, all of this extra stuff. And I have monthly hangouts with the Patreons as well over Zoom. I haven't done it for a while because there was the launch party, and then we're having a live, and that's it. We're having a live event.
The one weekend that month we had a wedding commitment. I was like, no!
Do you know what? That happened to so many people because I approached the castle again. I was like, hey, I got no money, but could we hold? Because I know a guy with a castle.
I know a guy with a castle.
You have a castle guy. Yeah.
You have a castle guy.
Yeah, and but because the only weekend they had free was in my timescale was Bank Holiday weekend. So many people went there because I would have loved to have seen you guys there, and I know you would have if you could have done. Yes, but in July we're having a live drunk ghost story where it's going to be like a Tommy Wiseau The Room experience of me retelling The Exorcist whilst David teases me and everyone else gets to heckle. and we're going to make it into a drinking game or any other way to interact for people.
If you'll excuse me, I'm just gonna make a note.
This is, I believe, let me get the date for you. It is on the 9th of July. It's a Patreon exclusive. And I'm hoping a lot of people will join us for that. Patrons also get the episodes 2 days in advance. They get them ad-free, and they get secrets. They knew about all of our guest stars months before they came out. You should have seen the one about Raukoli. I was like, holy shit, guys!
We saw the Twitter reaction. I participated in the Twitter reaction. I was like, holy...
Alasdair DM'd me. He was like, what have you got on him? Nothing, he's just nice. But yeah, so there's a lot on there. Excuse me?
I said, you want to talk about people I want to play the Doctor. Freaking Rahul Kohli is the top of that list.
Do you know what? I love him. I think he's great, but he will never play the Doctor because his social media is filth. The BBC would not be able to contain him. So, also quite sad. He said because people often tell him to play James Bond, and he said he would get too much racist abuse. So
fair.
Yeah.
And you know, you get to draw the lines that are right for you. That's
I'm hoping Shooty doesn't experience that. Anyway, just to quickly get off of Doctor Who, I might have brewed myself away with it. But the best way to support me personally is the Patreon. It helps me have some form of fixed income, whilst not just being charity for you a lot there. So if people would consider that, it would be ace. Thank you.
Thank you incredibly so very much.
This has been a fucking delight.
This has been delightful. We need to spend at least another hour and a half talking about Doctor Who and Star Trek.
I have all these notes about Star Trek. I was prepared.
How much time do we have? Wendy will kill me. Our mods will kill me. We have to do some nice, lovely, fluffy stuff.
I can tell you the episode when the holographic Doctor creates his penis.
And I'm terrified that you actually are able to do that. And we can talk about Strange New Worlds and Lower Decks. There's just...
Before we jump off that particular merry-go-round, there is one particular Doctor Who Star Trek comic that you need.
Okay.
It is the first annual of the current series, and it is incredibly good. The basic premise of the whole series is Sisko is put in charge of the USS TCS, the Starfleet testbed vessel, because someone is killing godlike aliens. So he and Beverly and Scotty and a whole bunch of, and Tom Paris, because he's bored and B'Elanna's kicked him out. He's like, go fly something, bring back milk, go off and do all this. But the annual is them on the way to somewhere else, and they just need to distract themselves. So Beverly is running a Dungeons and Dragons game Data is with a holographic DM screen.
Wow.
For Beverly, Sisko, and Shax from Lower Decks. And Scotty gets a message from the holodeck, which reads, Scotty, need help. Jim. And 2 pages later, you are on every ship from every incarnation of Star Trek. And it is one of those things that feels like there is no way they will bring it into land. And they bring it into land and tie it off with a bow.
Whoa.
And the next time people ask me what my top 5 Star Trek stories are, this is one of them.
Wow. That is high praise indeed.
Is this the one that involved Quark and the last Corgi in existence?
That is the
I saw that. I saw the DS9 guys with a Corgi in a comic. I went, no, Mark, you can't buy that.
That is the DS9 miniseries they have at the moment called Dog of War, where Quark acquires the last purebred Corgi in the Quadrant, who also happens to have a vital piece of Borg technology on him.
I have to read that.
They're all very good.
Okay,
it's a mental health need.
If you're trying not to spend money on comic books, don't talk to Alasdair.
I know a guy. The guy is me.
He knows many, many guys, and he will tell you all about their amazing work. We should probably let you go. Thank you so much for joining us.
This has been amazing, dude. Thank you so much.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you so much.
I can't wait until we get to be together in person again and hang out and talk about Star Trek. That is going to be really fun.
Well, yeah, I'll have to actually look at what's happening, or we'll just make our own podcast thing where we talk about nothing that's on topic.
Hey!
You're here for ghost stories, but here's Seven's autistic parallel journey.
And we're going to talk about Star Trek ghost stories. That's our excuse.
Coming up next on Shit Out of Luck.
Sub Rosa.
All right, everybody. We're going to say goodnight to Mark and take one last final break, and then we will come back for a little bit of shenanigans. Yeah, we definitely need to do a Northern podcast meetup.
Yes, we do.
For sure. As soon as physically possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a lovely evening, folks. We'll be right back.